One of the top tech companies in the world just released a 22-page report claiming that Bitcoin's security algorithm may be at risk. Every coin, every transaction tracked, and putting your Bitcoin at risk. Here's what they're reporting. Breaking Bitcoin's cryptography requires 20 times fewer resources than anyone previously thought. We're talking about a quantum computer that could crack the encryption protecting your wallet in minutes. Google set a 2029 deadline, and the price of Bitcoin just dropped into the 60s. I want you to sit with that for a second because it sounds terrifying, and honestly, part of it is. But the bigger question is, why drop this information now? Who wrote this? Is this a coordinated attack or a genuine concern? Let's find out. Welcome back to Satoshi. Let's get into it. Bitcoin's wallet security relies on something called elliptic curve cryptography, specifically ECDLP 256. In plain English, when you create a Bitcoin wallet, a mathematical relationship between your private key and your public key protects your funds. The assumption has always been that solving that mathematical problem would require millions of qubits, more computing power than any realistic quantum computer would ever have. Google's paper changes that estimate dramatically. They've compiled quantum circuits, essentially the code for how a quantum computer would run the attack, that require fewer than 1,200 logical qubits and under 500,000 physical qubits to break ECDLP 256. That's a 20-fold reduction from prior estimates, and they say that it could be done in minutes. Now, here's what I want to be precise about because the coverage has been sloppy. What the paper says, a future quantum computer could break Bitcoin's wallet encryption. What the paper does not say, that this is possible today. No quantum computer with 500,000 physical qubits exists. The most advanced quantum processors today have a few thousand, and we are nowhere near that capacity yet. Google published this to give the cryptocurrency community time to upgrade, not to announce that Bitcoin is already broken. In fact, Bitcoin might not even be a thing in this. It might really just affect the shitcoins. Their own words, we want to raise awareness on the issue and are providing the cryptocurrency community with recommendations to improve security and stability before this is possible. There's also a crucial distinction in the mainstream coverage that is completely missing. Bitcoin actually uses two cryptographic systems. SHA-256, which powers Bitcoin mining and proof of work, is not vulnerable to quantum attacks. The paper is specifically about ECDSA, the signature algorithm used for wallet keys. The Bitcoin network itself is not at risk. Specific exposed wallets are. Which wallets are exposed? Primarily two types. First, wallets that have already sent a transaction, because when you send, your public key becomes visible on the blockchain. Second, P2PK outputs, the oldest Bitcoin addresses, including Satoshi-era coins where the public key was exposed by design. About 1.7 million Bitcoin sits in these vulnerable addresses. If you've never sent from a wallet and you're using a modern address type, your coins are significantly safer. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting. The tea is that the Google paper names its partners Coinbase, the Stanford Institute for Blockchain Research, and the Ethereum Foundation. The paper was co-authored by someone employed by the Ethereum Foundation, and the paper dropped on the same day that Ethereum launched its quantum resistance portal. I'm gonna let that sit for a second. Now, I'm not saying Google's findings are fake. The math is the math. The threat is real, but the timing, the partnerships, and the narrative framing of this paper are worth examining carefully. Because here's what's happening in the coverage. Bitcoin is being portrayed as vulnerable and unprepared. Ethereum is being portrayed as proactive and ahead of the curve. The paper specifically mentions that Ethereum is already testing post-quantum alternatives like BLS 12-381. Google's own blog post mentions the Ethereum Foundation Foundation by name as a collaborative partner. Meanwhile, Bitcoin is framed as having no coordinated response, and yet, Bitcoin Magazine confirmed this week that a BIP 360, a Bitcoin improvement proposal specifically designed to make Bitcoin quantum resistant, is already deployed on testnet. Developers are literally writing the code right now.
Developers.
The narrative doesn't match the reality, and the question that you should be asking is, who benefits from that gap? Google's own paper warns that unscientific fear is, and I'm quoting directly, an attack on the system. The irony of that statement, given the coordinated timing of this release, is not lost on me. And look, if this episode has you thinking about the security of your own stack, that's exactly the right instinct. That's where the Bitcoin way comes in. Your personal Bitcoin IT team, self-custody training, cybersecurity, Plan B residency, over 20 years of expertise. They simplify the whole thing so that you stay in complete control of your stack. Book a free 30-minute consultation at thebitcoinway.com/simply. Tell them Satoshi sent you. Here's the theory I want to put forward, and I want to be transparent in that this is my opinion, not an established fact, but I think it's worth saying out loud. Building a quantum computer capable of breaking Bitcoin's cryptography is not something an individual, a startup, or even most corporations can do. We're talking about a machine requiring hundreds of thousands of physical qubits, operating at temperatures colder than outer space, requiring extraordinary cooling infrastructure, billions of dollars of investment, and years of coordinated engineering at a nation-state level. The entities that can build this are Google, government research labs, and state-sponsored programs like China's Quantum Initiative. These are not decentralized actors. These are the most centralized, most powerful institutions on the planet. And here's the thing about those institutions. They need centralized currency to maintain control. The ability to print money, to freeze accounts, to monitor financial transactions, to cut people off from the financial system. That is a fundamental pillar of how modern states exercise power. And Bitcoin is a direct threat to that pillar. A fixed supply, permissionless, censorship-resistant, monetary network that nobody controls is the last thing that a centralized power structure wants to see succeed. So ask yourself, what is the incentive structure here? The most powerful centralized actors on the planet have both the means to build quantum computers and the motive to use them against the most powerful decentralized monetary network ever created. Quantum isn't just a technical threat to Bitcoin. It's the most powerful tool a centralized system has to fight back against a decentralized one. And yet, Bitcoin has survived 17 years of existential threats. Code bugs, exchange hacks, regulatory crackdowns, forks, bans, bear markets. Every single time, the network adapted and got stronger. So here's what I find genuinely fascinating about Bitcoin, and it connects to something bigger than just quantum. Bitcoin is, in a very real sense, the first network in history where human beings have a direct economic incentive to ensure its survival and upgrade its defenses. Miners, developers, node operators, they're not doing this out of charity. The Bitcoin they hold, mine, and earn only has value if the network survives. The halving creates a perpetual economic engine that funds security indefinitely. The open source development model means that when a threat is identified, like quantum, the best cryptographers in the world have every incentive to solve it. BIP 360 being on testnet right now is not an accident. It's Bitcoin's immune system activating. The same way that the network adapted to SegWit, to Taproot, to Lightning, it will adapt to quantum, not because someone told it to, because the incentive structure demands it. And here's the other thing. Post-quantum cryptography doesn't just protect Bitcoin Bitcoin. SHA-256 and quantum-resistant signature schemes will eventually be the security backbone of the entire digital economy. Banking systems, government databases, military communications, Bitcoin is not fighting this battle alone. The entire internet has to solve this problem, and the solutions being developed, including BIP360, will be part of the global upgrade that benefits everyone. Google set a 2029 deadline to migrate its own systems. The US government is working on it. Bitcoin developers are already on testnet. Everyone is moving, so the question isn't whether Bitcoin can adapt, it's whether it can adapt fast enough. And the answer, based on the history of this network, is a yes. And if any of this makes you think about your own Bitcoin security, step one is making sure that you actually own it. Bitcoin Well is the self-custody Bitcoin on-ramp. You buy Bitcoin directly into your personal wallet. No custodial risk, non-custodial by design, trusted by 50,000 plus users, publicly traded, daily recurring buys available. Sign up at bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc. Through our link, you get 3 chances to win 1,000,000 sats. That's 0.01 Bitcoin. Not nothing. So sign up at bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc. Okay, enough theory. Let's talk about what this actually means for you right now. First, don't panic. The Google paper is a warning about a future threat and not an announcement that Bitcoin is already broken. No quantum computer capable of this attack exists today. Second, stop reusing wallet addresses. Every time that you send from the same address, your public key is exposed on the blockchain. So use a new address for every transaction. Every modern wallet makes this easy. Third, if you have coins in the old P2PK addresses, the very oldest Bitcoin address format, first of all, you're probably a billionaire. Second of all, those are the highest risk. If you have access to those keys, consider moving those coins to a modern address type if you want to still be a billionaire. Fourth, watch BIP360. It's on testnet now. When it moves to mainnet, it could be the most important Bitcoin upgrade since Taproot. Understand what it does. It introduces quantum-resistant signature schemes that protect your keys even against a future CRQC. Fifth, and most importantly, the fact that this threat is being discussed openly, that developers are already building solutions, that Bitcoin Magazine is covering BIP360, that Checkmatey read the paper and called for a formal plan, that is the system working exactly as it should. Bitcoin has no CEO to panic. It has a community of thousands of developers and millions of hodlers who all have economic skin in the game. And that is not a weakness. That is the strongest security model that has ever been created. And if you want to be in the rooms where Bitcoin's future is actually being built, Mining Disrupt is where that happens. The world's largest Bitcoin mining expo, biggest names in the industry, cutting-edge rigs, Bitcoin and AI integration, live stream keynotes, and networking you cannot get anywhere else. Grab your tickets at miningdisrupt.com and use promo code SIMPLYBITCOIN for 20% off. Do not sleep on this. Bitcoin has been called dead and then resurrected more times than I can count. Trust me, I've been in the space long enough to know. Every threat gets louder right around the bottom of a bear market. Funny how that works. The Google paper is real, the threat is real, nobody is denying that, and the timeline is real, and Bitcoin's response, already on testnet, already in development, is also real. So here's what I keep coming back to. The most powerful centralized institutions on the planet are spending billions of dollars building the technology that they hope will finally break Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's response is a volunteer community of developers who hold the asset and have everything to lose. History says, bet on the people with skin in the game. Thanks for watching Simply Bitcoin's Satoshi. Don't forget to smash the like button, share the show with your friends, and drop a comment below. I read them all. Follow me on X at InternetSophie, and as always, stack, slay, and stay bullish, baby.